Erev Tov and good evening, everyone. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parsha Beshalach. We are going to do Os Aleph, section 1. It's on page Taf Reish Yud Beis in the sefer. And in order to understand this section, we're going to need to look at one pasuk from the Parsha. It's actually the first pasuk from Parsha Beshalach. Vayihi Beshalach Paro es ha'am. And it was when Paro sent out the people, V'lo nacham Elokim derech eretz Plishtim, and Hashem did not lead Bnei Yisrael through the land of the Plishtim, Ki karov hu, because it was close by. Ki amar Elokim, because Hashem said, Pen yinachem ha'am bir osam milchama, perhaps the people will have a change of heart when they see a war, V'shavu Mitzrayma, and they will return to Mitzrayim. So on that pasuk, the Zera Shimshon is going to ask three questions, and we're going to see them right now. And it was when Paro sent out the people, etc. Kosher, this is difficult. Why didn't the pasuk say, and it was when Hashem took the people out of Egypt? Meaning, why does the pasuk choose to put the credit, so to speak, give the credit to Paro? It was when Paro sent out the people, as opposed to saying, and it was when Hashem took out the people. Kimosha Amar HaKosav, as the Torah clearly states later on, this is a quote from a pasuk in Parshas Balak, and Bilam is speaking in this pasuk, and he says, Kel Motziam Mimitzrayim. Hashem took them out of Egypt. So the Zera Shimshon is saying it's no secret. The Torah is not trying to hide the fact that Hashem took them out of Egypt. So why doesn't the Torah here just clearly and simply say, and it was Vayihi, and it was when Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim, as opposed to what it actually says, Vayihi Beshalach Paro es ha'am, and it was when Paro sent out the people. That's question one. Question two, Umahu ki karov hu. And what does it mean when it says, because it was close? Meaning that when the pasuk says that Hashem did not lead the people through the Eretz Plishtim. In order to get to Eretz Canaan, the most direct path would have been to go through the Eretz Plishtim from Egypt up north through the land of the Plishtim, and that would be the quickest route. And it says God chose not to do that, to take them that way, because it was close by. So the Zera Shimshon says, well, this, obviously this is strange, because we always want to go the most direct route when we travel. When anyone travels anywhere, they want to go the shortest way and the most direct route. So what does it mean that Hashem chose not to use it because it was the most direct route? That's question two. V'lamahem sheitamim, and why does the Torah appear to give two reasons? And here's a quote from the pasuk: Ki karov hu, ki amar Elokim. The Torah uses the word ki, which means because, two times, saying because this path through the land of the Plishtim was close by, and then, which is one reason, ki amar Elokim, and then the second reason is because Hashem said the Jewish people might see a milchama, a war, and decide to return to Egypt. So why give both of those reasons? And there are other points that the Zera Shimshon says that bother him or that can be made on this pasuk, but he wants to focus on these three questions. And what we'll see is that he's going to develop a theme to answer these three questions, and then also show us, as he often does, how that theme, once we understand it, can be used to bring light and help us better understand several other psukim in the Torah, and give us a better and clearer perspective on the overall picture. Now we're in the second paragraph. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, Lefi sheYisrael tzaku el Hashem sheyotziam miMitzrayim, that Bnei Yisrael had cried out to Hashem to take them out of Mitzrayim. K'dichsiv, as the Torah writes, this is back in Parsha Shmos. Vayeyanchu Bnei Yisrael min ha'avoda vayizaku. And Bnei Yisrael groaned from the labor, and they cried out. So we see clearly that Bnei Yisrael cried out to Hashem. Ve'ikar za'akazu, and the main aspect of this crying out, he lefi shehayu sovrim shenishlam haketz bekoshi hashibud. It was because Bnei Yisrael reasoned that the time period of their slavery should be considered at an end because of the intensity of the slavery and the suffering. What this means is that Bnei Yisrael was well aware of the fact that, technically speaking, they had not yet spent the amount of years that Hashem had spoken to Avram Avinu about back in the Bris Bein HaBesarim in slavery. They knew that they weren't near that amount of years. They were far short of that amount of years. And however, they were crying out to Hashem, the Zera Shimshon is saying, and saying to Hashem, please accept our cries as if the amount of time of slavery has been completed, because of the terrible, terrible atrocities and persecutions that the Egyptians have subjected us to, and the terrible intensity of the slavery. Let it be, Hashem, as if the full amount of time has been fulfilled. V'tzaku el Hashem sheyagbir midas chasto alehem. In essence, what they were shouting out to Hashem was that his midas hachesed, his midas harachmim, his quality of mercy and kindness, should take control of the situation and rule that the time of the slavery was over. And when Hashem heard their shouts, as it's written, Hinei tzakas b'nei Yisrael bo elai. Behold, the crying of Bnei Yisrael has reached me. So Hashem clearly heard what Bnei Yisrael was saying, and not only heard what they were saying, understood this claim that they were making. It appears that Hashem agreed to their reasoning. It appears that Hashem accepted this, the logic of their argument, that even though technically they hadn't been enslaved for as many years as they were predicted to do so, nonetheless, the actual experiences that they had should make it as if their slavery had been fulfilled, and it should come to an end. Ve'im nishlam hakates, and if in fact the end had been reached, ein sarach sheparo yasam b'nei chorin, there would be no need for Paro to free them. Shehare kivan shehagia hasha, because since the actual time of the end of slavery had arrived, me'atzmam heim b'nei chorin, they would become free on their own. Meaning, if Hashem said you're going to be slave for X amount of time, and now the end of that time has come, or the equivalent of that time has come, and Hashem's willing to accept that argument that they're making, then Paro doesn't need to free them. They automatically become free. However, because of the argument made by Hashem's attribute of din, of justice, Shahayasa to'enes sha'adayin lo nishlam hakates, Hashem's midas hadin was claiming that the actual amount of years had not been fulfilled, that it would be a violation, so to speak, Havayachol, of Hashem's original prediction, Hashem's original nevuah to Abraham, if they left before the full amount of years had been fulfilled. So because of that claim and that point, Rotza HaKadosh Baruch Hu sheparo yasam b'nei chorin, Hashem wanted Paro to be the one to claim that they would to give them their freedom, to grant them their freedom, and to let them go. V'yomer lahem harei atem b'nei chorin, and to say to them, behold, you are free men. V'ayin b'parsha kodemes, and look, you can see more about this in the previous parsha, in Parshas Bo, and the Zera Shimshon's commentary there. So let's pause here, because we already see here in this first paragraph, even though the Zera Shimshon is going to explain more, we see the direction he wants to take, which is he's saying that the fundamental issue at stake here was the fact that Bnei Yisrael was crying out to Hashem to be rescued and to be saved and to be able to leave Egypt. And Hashem apparently accepted the fact, their argument, that the intensity of the servitude was so terrible and so much more than it should have been, and that it was intended to be, that therefore Hashem should view it as if the full amount of years of slavery had arrived, and Hashem should take them out of Egypt, even though technically it was before the time that was supposed to come when all of the years of slavery would be fulfilled. So therefore, because they were going to leave early, and because Hashem was accepting this claim, this reasoning on their part, Hashem wanted Paro to send them out. Otherwise, the Midas Hadin of Hashem would say they're leaving too soon, and that's not okay. However, if Paro sends them out, then that could be a resolution, then that problem could be solved. And so that's why the pasuk says, "Vayhi Beshalach Paro es ha'am," and it was when Paro sent them out, because of course we know Hashem is the one who arranged for them to leave and took them out and was in control of Yetzias Mitzrayim and making it happen in every way. However, we see here that Hashem wanted Paro to send them out since the full amount of years of slavery had not yet been reached, had not yet been fulfilled. Umeato, we're at the bottom of the first column. And from now, im haya omer hakosav vayihi kahotzi Hashem es Yisrael v'chuli, if the pasuk in the beginning of our Parsha had actually said, and it was when Hashem took them out, hayamashma shehotziam bizmana, this would have implied that Hashem took them out at the appropriate time. K'moshe hein tza'oku elav, just like they were crying out to him. Remember, the Zera Shimshon told us that the essence of the Jewish people's crying out to Hashem was to make a point. It wasn't just to cry out and say, we're in pain, we're suffering. It was to say, Hashem, we're in so much pain and we've been suffering for so long that we believe it should be considered the case, the end of our period of slavery. That's exactly what they were saying to Hashem. And if the pasuk said Hashem took them out, that is what we would think. That is how we would understand it, that Hashem took them out after their period of slavery had been completed. Ivin Cain, and if so, Afim Yelchu Derech Plishtim, even if they had gone through the land of the Plishtim when they left, Lo Haya Ola Al Datam Lachzor LeMitzrayim, it never would have occurred to them to return to Egypt. Okay, this is a critical point. So let's pause here for a moment to think it through. What the Zera Shimshon is saying is the fact that, hypothetically, if the Torah had said that Hashem took them out instead of Paro sent them out, if it had said Hashem took them out, then number one, the implication would be that Hashem took them out at the end of the time period, at the appropriate end of the time period of slavery. And number two, a corollary of that would be that the people would feel confident that they were leaving at the right time, that they had completely fulfilled the period of slavery. And therefore, even had they gone through the land of the Plishtim, Hashem would have been able to take them the shortest, most direct route, because had they gone there, and even had they seen a war, they would have had no fears and no concerns, because they would have known that Hashem viewed it as if they had fulfilled the complete period of slavery, and there was no way that they were ever considered going back to Egypt. Omnam, however, la'achar she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu hichriach es Paro la'asosam b'nei chorin, after Hashem forced Paro to turn them into free men, in other words, after Hashem applied the ultimate pressure of the Makos leading up to Makas Bechoros, which broke Paro's will, in order for Paro to say it's time for you to leave, you must leave. From the fact that Paro was sending them out, this shows that their full period of servitude had not yet ended, as the Zera Shimshon explained before previously in the second paragraph. If the full period had actually ended, then Bnei Yisrael would have no need of Paro to free them. But we see that Paro did, in fact, say, you need to leave, and he freed them to go. So this shows that their period of slavery had not been fully fulfilled. And then, if that's true, then the possibility existed that they would in the future need to undergo other additional periods of exile and slavery. So the people reasoned that if the full period of slavery was not considered complete, and Hashem's predictions have to be completely fulfilled, then we're going to have to undergo, even if we leave Egypt, we're going to have to undergo a future exile and a future period of suffering and servitude in a different place, to a different nation, to a different ruler. Me'ata efshar, from now it's possible, she'im yolicham derech eretz plishtim. Now we understand that if Hashem had led them through the land of the plishtim, sheyirtzu lachzor, that they would want to return to Egypt, meaning that the Jewish people at least would know that if they went back to Egypt, they understood the conditions of the slavery, which were horrific, but they knew what they would be dealing with. And if they went to the land of the Plishtim, and the Plishtim enslaved them, and Hashem would have possibly allowed that to happen, they had no idea what that would be like. Perhaps it would be even worse. Perhaps the Plishtim would say, we don't want to enslave you, we just want to wipe you out as a people. So they did not want to face the possibility of being enslaved by a new people, and they would want to leave the Eretz Plishtim and go return to Mitzrayim. And because of this, Omar HaKosov Dafka, the pasuk specifically uses the language Vayehi Beshalach Paro, and it was when Paro sent them out. V'chule v'lo nacham. Once Paro sent them out, then because it was Paro sending them out, Hashem did not want to lead them through the land of the Plishtim. Shaharei mishlichos zeh, because through this sending out by Paro, mashma kikarov hu, it meant that it, and we'll see what it means in a moment, that it was close by. Kizman geulosam nikrav kodim zmano. The Zera Shimshon says, what does it mean it was close? Doesn't mean the land of the Plishtim was close. It means the time of their redemption was close, meaning too soon. It was too close, too soon, and it was before the real time when they were originally supposed to leave. So the Zera Shimshon here offers a tremendous novel idea in terms of understanding the pasuk. When we read that pasuk, we always understand it to mean kikarov hu. It was close. What was close? The land of Eretz Plishtim was close by. And that creates the question that the Zera Shimshon asked. His second question in the first paragraph was, why would Hashem ever say, I don't want to take you a certain way because that way is close by and it's the short way to go? That doesn't make sense. So the Zera Shimshon is answering here, you're right, that doesn't make sense because that's not what the pasuk means. The pasuk is referring to the fact that Bnei Yisrael was leaving Kikarov Hu at a time that was too close, too soon. It wasn't a complete fulfillment of the amount of time that they were supposed to be in Egypt. Umitam zeh, and for this reason that they were leaving too soon, Ki Omar Elokim Pen Yinochem Ha'am. That's why Hashem said, I'm concerned that the people will get through the land of the Plishtim. There might be a battle, and if they see a battle, they'll say, we do not want to be enslaved by the Plishtim. We'd rather go back to Egypt and finish our term of servitude there. Upirish Rashi, and Rashi explains, Yachshavu machshava al sheyatsu v'yitnu leiv lashu. What does it mean the people might have a change of heart? So Rashi says they will think thoughts about their leaving, and they will give heart, they will consider returning to Egypt. So the Zera Shimshon says, here's how to understand that Rashi. Yachshavu machshava al sheyatsu kodem tashlum minyan haketz. What does Rashi mean? They will think about their leaving. It means they will think about the fact that they're leaving before the time that they were supposed to leave. The year to Yoshuv, and they will want to return. Why? Lahashlim sham minyan hagolos. In order to complete there and back in Egypt, the complete exile that they were ordained to experience. Shema yisyaru lachsor begolos acheres. Because they were afraid of experiencing Gullus in a different place and under a different ruler and under a different nation. Let's pause here to recap what the Zera Shimshon has done for us. Number one, he has answered questions 2 and 3 by giving us a completely new way of understanding the psukim, and all of it is based on the theme he developed, that the main issue here, the underlying issue of what's going on here in the beginning of Parsha Beshalach, is the issue of whether or not Bnei Yisrael actually fulfilled the time period of slavery that they were destined to experience. They were arguing to Hashem and crying out to Hashem saying, no, we haven't technically fulfilled the amount of time, but the horrific nature of the servitude should make it be considered by you, Hashem, please, as if we have. And Hashem appeared, as the Zera Shimshon said, to accept that argument, was prepared to take them out of Egypt based on that. However, Hashem wanted it to work through Paro sending them out. Once Paro sent them out, then Bnei Yisrael felt that they weren't leaving with a complete fulfillment of the amount of time, and that put them in a position where if something happened in the Eretz Plishtim and the Eretz Plishtim came out to battle against them, in their minds they would think this isn't just a battle because the Plishtim don't want us to come through their land. This is a battle of domination. The Plishtim want to conquer us and enslave us, and we will not accept to be enslaved in a new country. We'd rather go back to Mitzrayim and go back to our previous status of slaves in Egypt than be enslaved in a new country and a new place under a new ruler. And that's what's going on here, according to the Zera Shimshon. Now, as we mentioned, the Zera Shimshon is going to move on to other psukim and other places and help us understand those other psukim in light of the foundational idea that he's developed. And this is what the pasuk means. This is a pasuk from Parshas Va'era. V'lo shamu el Moshe. The Torah says, it's a well-known pasuk, that when Moshe came and said to Bnei Yisrael, I'm here, Hashem has sent me to take you out, Bnei Yisrael did not listen to him, mikotze ruach u'me'avodah kasha, from a shortness of spirit and from the fact that they were undergoing hard labor. That's what the pasuk says. So the Zera Shimshon says, v'adarabba, it should be just the opposite. Hayu lahem lehisnachem b'shama b'sora tova. They should have been comforted when they heard the good news. Meaning, Moshe comes to the Jewish people who are suffering as slaves, and he says to them, God has finally heard your prayers, and he sent me to rescue you, and has sent me to take you out of slavery. So they should have been tremendously comforted and even rejoiced. Instead, they wouldn't listen to Moshe. Well, how could that be? Ki shemua tova tidoshen otzem. This is a quote from a pasuk in Mishlei, which tells us as follows, to translate, a good report, hearing something good, hearing good news fattens the bones. So the pasuk in Mishlei teaches us that when you give someone good news, you're doing something that revives them, that gives them strength, that gives them, even physically, has a wonderful impact on them when you give someone good news. So the Zera Shimshon is saying, when Moshe came and gave them the good news that he was here to take them out of Egypt, they should have been, as we said, they should have been rejoicing and happy. What does it mean they didn't want to listen to him? Ella, but Yisrael hayu misyarim pen yischayvu lalechas tachas malchus acheres lehishtabed. But as we have explained, the Zera Shimshon says, the reason Bnei Yisrael didn't listen to Moshe is because they said, if we're going to leave, then that's going to mean we're leaving too soon. And if we leave too soon, someone else is just going to enslave us and capture and dominate us and persecute us. V'hainu. And this is what the pasuk means, mikotze ruach, from a shortness of spirit, ume'avoda kasha ha'asida, and from out of a concern of being put to hard labor in the future. The Zera Shimshon, of course, is adding the word ha'asida, which doesn't appear in the pasuk, but he's explaining the pasuk by saying, don't think, as most of us do, and as most people understand that pasuk, that it means they didn't listen to Moshe because they were so enslaved in Egypt that they couldn't hear him and they couldn't understand him and they couldn't believe what he was saying. He says, don't think that's what it means. It means mikotze ruach ume'avoda kasha. They wouldn't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu because of their fear about future labor, future servitude that they were afraid they were going to experience if Moshe took them out too soon. So Moshe comes and he says, I'm here to take you out. They say, our calculations, we know the years haven't been fulfilled, so if you take us out, that's going to not be a good thing for us possibly, because we'll be enslaved by a new nation. So that's the reason, and the Zera Shimshon says that they wouldn't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu and his seemingly his apparent good news that he wanted to share with them. Shahari Kodem Zeh, because before this pasuk, Ksivi, the Torah wrote, Dalid Lashono Shel Geula, the four languages of redemption. V'hotzesi, Hashem said, I will bring you out. V'hitzalti, and I will rescue you. V'ga'alti, and I will redeem you. V'lakachti, and I will take you. The famous four Lashonos of Geula. V'heim romzim legolios acheros. The people said those four languages hint that Hashem's going to have to not just save us this time, but he's going to have to rescue us in the future as well. So the language that Moshe wanted them to understand from the four Lashonos of Geula was that Hashem was going to end and bring to an end every kind of suffering they were experiencing. Each one of the languages of Geula referred to a different part of their experiences as avodim, as slaves. And Moshe was saying, Hashem's going to end every one of the terrible experiences that are inherent in your servitude. However, the people said 4 languages of Geula hints that Hashem is not just going to have to save us now from Egypt, he's going to have to save us from future Golios, from future exiles and periods of servitude. Vehem romzim legolios acheros uchsiv, and it's written by Yadaber Moshe Chain el Bnei Yisrael, and Moshe spoke thus to Bnei Yisrael. Sha'amar lahem Chain mamish. He actually was saying to them the concern that they had. He was speaking directly to the concern that they had. She'ramaz lahem hagolios, because his words of 4 languages of Geula to them hinted to future exiles. Elo she'im yiskaimu b'nei Yisrael shelo yechetu. However, Moshe's intention was to say to them, if b'nei Yisrael, you don't sin in the future, lo yilchu od begolus, you will not experience any more exiles. Moshe wasn't trying to say to them, inevitably, inexorably, no matter what happens, you're going to be in future exiles. Moshe was trying to say to them, as long as you don't sin, as long as you don't commit serious chatoyim, you won't have to experience any future exiles after we leave Egypt. Moshe Perashon Elba Parsha Shmos, as the Zera Shimshon has explained previously, Al Daya Litzar Bishata, on the words Daya Litzar Bishata V'ayin Sham, and you can look there for more information about it. Bezehu Sha'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is what Hashem meant when he said, Vayetzavam El Bnei Yisrael, V'el Paro Melech Mitzrayim, Lahotzi Es Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. The pasuk says that Hashem commanded Moshe and Aaron to go to Paro and to take out Bnei Yisrael from the land of Mitzrayim. The pasuk implies that the mitzvah that Hashem gave to Moshe and Aaron wasn't just to convince Paro to let them go, but their whole mitzvah was, you're going to have a hard time with Paro, and you're also going to have to convince Bnei Yisrael to leave Egypt. She Yisrael lo hayu kol kach rotzim lotzeis. Because the Jewish people they were ambivalent. They did not truly want to leave Egypt. They weren't sure about leaving Egypt, miyirazu, from this fear that they had that if they left Egypt before the appropriate time, they would simply be enslaved and be setting themselves up for being enslaved by another power which they knew nothing about and had no idea how they would deal with it. Continuing in the top of the next column on Daf Taf Resh Yud Gimel on Daf Taryak. V'zehu sha'amar Paro, the Zera Shimshon is here going to continue explaining other psukim based on the theme that he's developed. V'zehu sha'amar Paro, and this is what Paro meant when he said, this is in our Parsha of Beshalach, after Bnei Yisrael left. Ma zos asinu, what have we done? Ki shilachnu es Yisrael me'avdenu, that we sent the Jewish people out from serving us. V'vadai she'Yisrael yu avodim hamacheres le'eze umah. Paro said the Jews are just going to leave Egypt and they're going to be enslaved by another nation. So why would we let them go? If they're going to be slaves somewhere, anywhere else, let them stay and be slaves here. Kidei tashlum arba me'os u'shloshim shana. Paro said, I know about the prediction of 430 years, and they haven't been enslaved in Egypt for 430 years. So if they leave, they're just going to be enslaved for many years somewhere else. So therefore, what were we thinking when we let them leave us if they're just going to go be slaves for someone else? It would be okay, it would be good if the Jews would leave Egypt and be completely free. Paro says, you know what, if the Jews would leave, if God would take them out of Egypt and they would leave Egypt and never be enslaved another time by anyone else, okay, that would be okay. Lo hayisi omer klum. Then I wouldn't say anything. But since they are going to be enslaved in order to finish the complete number of years that they need to be enslaved, then they might as well stay here, which would be certainly better for us as Egyptians to have them as our slaves for so much more time. V'chein omer lahem, and so he said to them, Ru'u ki ro'a neged pneichem. He said, look, there is evil in front of your faces. Now that's a very unusual statement that Paro made. And on that, the Chazal and the Midrashim and also the Meforshim talk about what did Paro mean when he said, Ru'u ki ro'a neged pneichem. You want to leave Egypt, but look, there is evil in front of your faces. If you leave Egypt, bad things are going to happen. So the Zera Shimshon says, what does that mean? What was Paro referring to? Shehine Avraham Birer Hamalchios B'Makom Gehenim. This is comes from a very famous medrash that actually the Zera Shimshon has quoted before in previous pieces that we've done. Avram Avinu chose the consequence of serving other nations rather bimkom Gehenim, rather than the possibility, the consequence of Jews who sin going to Gehenim. And the Medrash tells us, Chazal tell us that Hashem gave Abraham a choice, and he said in the future when Bnei Yisrael, when your descendants sin, they can either go to Gehenim to be cleansed of their sins, or they can serve other nations. They can have Shibud Malchios. They can be dominated and have to serve other nations. So Abraham chose and said, I want them to have Shibud Malchios as opposed to Gehenim. So that gave Abraham the ability, if Chas v'Shalom, a Jew is sentenced to Gehenim, to be able to bring the Jew out of Gehenim. V'im lo yashlimu zman hagolus, so Paro's reasoning was, if the Jews don't complete their time of servitude, im kain chayavim Gehenim, then they have to go to Gehenim, right? The only excuse, the only way they can escape Gehenim, the Jews can escape Gehenim, is if they have Shibud Malchios. But if they leave Egypt without fulfilling the amount of time they're supposed to be here, then they will have to face Gehenim. Va'atem rotzim latseis kodem zemanchem, and you Jews, Paro says, you want to leave before your time is complete. Ra'u ki tiplu b'Gehenim. See that you will now be subject to the consequence of falling into Gehenim. So that's what, according to Zera Shimshon, Paro meant when he made this very cryptic statement, Ra'u ki ra neged pneichem, see how there is evil in front of your faces, meaning see how the choice you're making to leave Egypt before your period of servitude is ended means you'll now be subject to the punishment and the consequence of Gehenna. Ucheshirou Yisrael shemitzrayim rotim achareihem. And when Bnei Yisrael saw, as they reached the Yam Suf, that the Egyptians were pursuing them, machmas hatayna she'adayin lo nishlam haketz, they viewed this, that the Egyptians were pursuing them because of the Egyptians' claim that the time of their servitude had not ended. That's how they process. They see the Egyptians coming after them. In their minds, they're saying, well, of course the Egyptians are coming after us. In a way, they have it's justifiable because we left Egypt before the time of our servitude was fulfilled and completed. So they're coming to take us, capture us, and bring us back to finish the time period. Amru, they said, Halo zeh hadavar asher dibarnu elecha b'Mitzrayim lemor. They said to Moshe, this is the thing we said to you back in Egypt. This experience we're having now of the Egyptians coming to capture us, recapture us, and take us back to Egypt, this is what we told you would happen. V'chule, etc. V'hechen divru zeh b'Mitzrayim. But where did they ever say this in Egypt? There's no clear pasuk where any of the Jewish people said this to Moshe. Elavadai, but definitely she'amru kach, they said this, when the Torah told us, as we've discussed a few moments ago, that the Bnei Yisrael didn't listen to Moshe because of their concern for leaving Egypt too soon and being enslaved, being enslaved in the future by a new nation, then this much must be what they said to him at the time. You'll see that we're going to leave, and Paro is going to come back and be able to capture us, recapture us, and bring us back because we're leaving too soon. And now they said, Halo tov hayalavod v'chule. It was good for us to work in Egypt, meaning, again, this is the whole theme. They were saying we'd rather go back to Egypt and finish our period of slavery than leave Egypt and celebrate being free and then only to be captured by a new country and enslaved by them. Milomus v'lipo b'Gehenna. We'd rather go back to Egypt than suffer the penalty of dying and going to Gehenna. So in addition to the fear that they had of being enslaved by another country, the Zera Shimshon also talked about their message from Paro that now they would be subject to Gehenna by leaving too soon. So there were two fears that they had, the fear of being enslaved by a new people and the fear of being subject to Gehenna if they didn't finish their period of slavery. Moshe Amar Lahem Hisyatzvu Ura'u, and Moshe said to them, stand where you are and see. Klomar, this means to say, HaYeshua v'HaGeula Hi Geulas Olam. The salvation and redemption that you're going to experience now is forever. Shim lo hayu chotim be'egel, because in fact, had the Jews not committed the Chet HaEgel, Hayelahem Cherus Mishibud Malchios, they would have been free from any future subjugation by other nations. Kemosha Omru Razal, as Chazal say in the Medrash Rabbah. So in fact, Moshe's plan, as the Zera Shimshon mentioned before, Moshe's message to Bnei Yisrael from the beginning was, you don't have to have this concern about being enslaved by anyone else. As long as you don't sin, as long as you don't commit any terrible sins, and you follow the derech of Hashem, then Egypt will be the last time you're enslaved and the last time you're in Golus. You won't be enslaved and are exiled by any future nations. However, Chazal tell us that once they came out and the Chet HaEgel was committed, that changed everything, and Bnei Yisrael became subject to future domination by other nations and future experiences of Shibud Malchios. So just to recap, what the Zera Shimshon has done for us is he started off with three seemingly simple and basic questions on the first pasuk in Parsha's Beshalach. He developed a theme as to what was going on in order to answer those questions. And then he showed us how that theme really kind of changed everything and had ramifications in many, many different psukim in many different places. And underlying it all was this issue of whether or not Bnei Yisrael fulfilled their time period of slavery in Egypt, and if that was not the case, what the possible ramifications and consequences of that would be. On the other hand, Hashem's goal and Moshe's plan was to take the Jewish people out of Egypt and for them never to suffer any consequences of future servitude or future domination. Egypt would be the last experience of that. However, that tragically is not what ended up happening because of the Chet HaEgel. Yasher Koach to everyone for learning together.